Hello, and thank you for listening to Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. Please subscribe and follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and take the time to leave a review. Our Instagram channel is Instagram.com Liberty Gun Rights. Video episodes are uploaded to Rumble.com and my YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel and Rumble is called James Moffett. You can just search for it. Please subscribe and follow these channels for future updates. I release episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Thank you for listening, and now to our featured episode. Welcome to Voices of Leadership, a special series on the Liberty and Gun Rights podcast where we sit down with those who've led from the front lines, on the battlefield, in the boardroom, in the halls of civic life. Today's guest, Dr. Mary Kelly, brings decades of leadership as a Navy commander, economist, and author, offering a unique lens on liberty, responsibility, and what it means to lead in today's America. Dr. Commander Mary Kelly, how are you?
James, I'm delighted to be with you and your listening audience today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Would you like to give a little personal intro as to who you are?
I grew up in Texas. I was fortunate enough to go to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, graduated back in 1987, the great class of 87. I have amazing classmates like David Robinson, Sunny Williams. She was just in space. That was the 8-day spacewalk that took, 9 or 10 months. I have amazing classmates. And I will tell you, I have learned as much about leadership and responsibility from my classmates as anyone else throughout my career and my life. I got to spend 25 years on active duty in the Navy, mostly in Asia. And then when I retired out of the Navy, I started a couple businesses that did okay. And I focus on economic and leadership development now.
Awesome. So what did you tell us a little bit about your naval career? What did you do?
So I started out looking for Russian submarines in Asia and then Chinese submarines. And then I was trying to track down the Republican Guard. The first Gulf War had started. And then after that, I was looking for part of the counterterrorism teams. And then I ran bases people might be familiar with, like Pearl Harbor, as part of that team. And then I got to be a military chief of police for a while at Barbers Point Naval Air Station. And then I went on to be the N1 or what is the HR world, the HR director for an organization that puts communication on ships all over the world. So that's always the weirdest one to explain. Most people are familiar with, running bases. You've got, hospitals and childcare centers and shipyards and submarine things and all that. The weird one is the communications, because people think, oh, telephones. Okay, hang on. You know how sometimes your internet goes down in your house and your router goes out and it's really frustrating? Okay, now you're trying to figure that out for a ship in the middle of the ocean and you're trying to make that secure. That's a challenge. And this was before we had all the satellites in place and things like that. So that was that. And I was the HR director for that. And then I finished up my Navy career back teaching at the Naval Academy as a professor.
Well, it's like you said, a girl's got to work, right?
Girls got to work. I say this all the time. And I say that because I think people don't understand that for many people, work is a purpose. Work is not just a calling and a passion and all that. And a few things on that, and I say girls got to work all the time because people say, well, why do you do what you do? And I say, girls got to work. I need a reason to get up every morning. I need a purpose. I feel that right now, the people who lose their purpose, especially once they leave the military, are the ones who really suffer. Those are the people we worry about with the suicides and the depression and all that. And I think we saw this during COVID, that people who lost their purpose really lost their mental stability in the process. So when I say it all the time, girls got to work because we need a purpose. We need a reason to get up in the morning.
Amen. We all have to have a reason to get out of bed. And I just recently retired. I'm kind of semi-retired. I'm working a part-time security job to kind of help make things meet or ends meet. But I now have all this free time on my hands. And so I love to do podcasting. I love writing. I love photography. I joined the John Birch Society, so I'm really active in that. I have lots of stuff to do. Everybody's asking me, well, how do you like retirement? I love it because now 80% of the time I'm doing what James wants to do, not what corporate America wants me to do, right? So,
Absolutely. And I still make a schedule each and every day. I don't care if it's a holiday. I don't care if it's a weekend. I still make a schedule because otherwise we wind up wasting time. And when we waste time, in my opinion, there's a difference between relaxing because you're relaxing and you're doing what you love to do, or just sitting around wasting time. And I believe, life is this finite number of unknown minutes, and we need to just maximize those minutes.
yeah, none of us are guaranteed a tomorrow. That's for sure.
That's it.
So I want to digress just a little bit. Were you actually on a submarine?
I have, I've not been assigned on a submarine. Back when I was in, women couldn't serve on submarines, and we couldn't spend the night. So I have been on submarines while they've been submerged, but I have never been attached to a submarine.
I got you. So I'm a fan of any movies that have to do with submarines, like Hunt for Red October, Killer Hunter. There's like 5 or 6 of those submarine attack submarines and those movies. I just love those movies, and I just I don't
The person
know
you need
how.
the person you need to have on the podcast is my husband, who was on a submarine.
Oh, really?
So,
Okay. Well,
yes.
we'll talk about that offline. We'll make that happen.
Yeah.
And because the 8-year-old boy in me will just like, oh my gosh, this is so fun.
I am fascinated that we figured out how to take people and put them underwater for long periods of time. And what's always interesting to me is the submarines can go for a long, long time. We have to bring them back out because people start to get a little stir crazy. And
Yeah, because they're nuclear powered, right? They can stay underwater for years.
long, long time.
Yeah. And I isn't the nickname for submariners Bubblehead or something like that?
It is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nicknames. That's one for sure.
And I have some associates and friends that did serve in the U.S. Navy on submarines, and it's like firemen. Who in the right mind is going to run into a building that's engulfed in flames? Who's in the right mind is going to get into a little tin box or a steel box and be submerged for days, months, years on end? No.
And if something
I'd like
goes
to
wrong,
get on a submarine, go into the conning tower and where all the technology is. I spent 30 years in IT, so I'm all about technology, servers, circuitry, toys, electronic toys and all that. But I would be good for like maybe 3 or 4 hours. And as soon as they said, okay, we're going to submerge, I'll be like, oh, no. No, I'm a little bit claustrophobic. I need to get out of this thing.
the thing is, when you're in the submarine, you're underwater, but you don't really. The big surprise I think that most people have is you think that when you're deep underwater and there's a storm going on, on the surface, you think that you wouldn't feel it, but you absolutely do feel it. And that was the
Really?
big surprise. That was a big surprise to me. Yeah. You think, oh,
Wow.
you're kind of protected under the water. You actually feel it. I know. Weird.
It just kind of buffets the ship around.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel the boat swaying and wow.
Yeah.
And I would guess that if you're attached to a submarine, you've got a job, and so there's not a lot of downtime probably. And I know they have shifts, but I bet when you're working, you're really busy and you don't have time to think about loneliness or your family or
I'm not sure you ever take the emotional piece out of it, but I do know that the sub folks I know are really, really focused. And when they are focused on the work they have to do in the moment, they're very, very focused.
Right. Yeah, because it's kind of a life or death thing, right? They have to do their job correctly or people could perish, I would imagine.
Well, you have to make your own air. Think about that for a second. How do you make your own air? And if you get it wrong, it's bad. So yeah, it's kind of a serious thing.
You have to make your own air?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, I don't know.
I know they got air scrubbers that kind of clean the CO2 out of the air. But yeah, I don't know. Your husband and I can talk about that.
Yeah, y'all need to talk. You'll have a great time.
So I want to share your web page screen. Hold on. I got to get better at this. Window.
No, you're great. And I appreciate your sharing this. So for the listening audience, I need y'all to know that I started using my web page as as like a Dropbox, because I would show up to organizations and I would need the forms that I would have somewhere. And I just needed a place where people could access these forms really easily.
Right.
So I was using my website as the cloud before we were calling it a cloud, and I just
Okay.
kept doing it. So now there's a ton of free stuff on my website because first, my business people need it, my leaders need it. When I share the website, people go, "Oh, wait, you've got budget forms and business budget forms and P&L sheets." Well, that's kind of cool, along with checklists for things that people need, like getting all your important documents together. And then I've got a section just for veterans because my family, we've got a bunch of veterans, my older brother, his wife, me, my husband, my sister, her husband, my brother, like all of us. And it's just a good place for me to put resources.
Yeah.
So y'all just jump on in there if you want. It's productiveleaders.com/free-resources, and jump on in there. You can kind of see what's in there.
I
My
love the saying, I don't care how much money you have, free stuff is always a good thing.
I know.
And for those
Thanks
of
for
us that
the
don't have a
joke.
lot of money, free stuff is even more, it's mo better.
Well, and the thing is, you don't want, there's a lot of garbage out there, and I try to sift through that. I get asked every single day, "Hey, can we put our stuff on your free resources site?" And I'm very, very careful about that. If they're trying to sell something or whatever, I don't put it there. So this is 99% of it is my stuff. Occasionally there's links that I haven't developed, but all of it is, well, most of it is my stuff, including a bunch of my 5-minute plans for better effectiveness. If you're trying to start a business, you're trying to figure some things out, it might be helpful.
I'm absolutely going to bookmark this page, and I'm going to look at some of the stuff. I like the free emergency forms, information and tools to help you organize your important documents in case of an emergency. Senior care form, child care form, dog care form, cat care form. I kind of giggle at those last two. Password list, absolutely. one of the I have a ABC's a Parenting Adult Children podcast as well, and one of the conversations that comes up is caring for your senior parents, and the importance of elder care and the importance of parents while they're of sound mind, taking care of the wills and living wills and regular wills and estate planning and all of that stuff. So this falls right in line with all of that.
It does. And that checklist, the in case of emergency break glass checklist, is the summary of the entire manual, which is about 144 pages. So the
Wow.
checklist so you just print that out. You go, okay, I've got it. Oh, I need help. And then you know where you need help. And then the thing with the cat care and the dog care and the child care and the senior care, it's all different. And so you have to think about, okay, if I get hit by a truck, and by the way, a year and a half ago, I got hit by a truck. So I'm
my
a
God.
motivational speaker and I actually got hit by the truck. How great is that? So if you
No.
live through it, it's fantastic. Broke a bunch of bones sticking out, smushed, jaws of life,
My
big
God.
drama. Amazing orthopedic surgeon. I'm pretty sure he worked at Home Depot because he was like, "We're just going to attach a plate and some screws here, little lady." I'm like, "Just fix me up, doc. Just patch me up. This is great." It was a Home Depot project for him, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, so if you think about if you get hit by a truck, what is somebody, if you're somewhere else, you have to call a neighbor that you're not close to and go, "Okay, go into my house, grab this binder. It will tell you what to do for the dog. It will tell you what to do for the cat. It will tell you what to do for my mom who's living in the basement or my child who's, you just don't know." So a lot of my parents print out those forms for their babysitters. For example, when they're leaving their kids at home, they're like, "Oh, this is what the babysitter needs to know." This is things like that. So the idea is I'm a big fan of systematizing and processing things if you're going to do it more than once, put a system to it, make it
Absolutely.
a checklist, make it easy for people to get things done.
Having been in IT for 30 years and having written lots of technical documentation and how to and frequently asked questions and all of that, I'm right in line with all this. This is right up my alley. And I'm gonna put this as a link on my website, my Parenting
I'd love
Adult
that.
Children website, so people can get to it. I don't have a website. Well, I do kind of have a website for liberty and gun rights, but it's not a full-blown website like for my other one. But maybe this will motivate me to do that.
And for the
as
ABCs
in a
of parenting, I just want to throw in there the monthly budget is designed for people of all ages and it does the math for you. So you fill in the numbers, it does the math. I did a budget for some young people last night. It took 5 minutes for us to put this together, and they had no budget whatsoever before this. 5 minutes. This is the monthly budget form. It does the math, and then what you do is you put in, that's on the left side, you put in the numbers, you save it to it doesn't ask for sign in. There's no silly sign ins on any of this stuff. And you
Okay.
save it to your computer. I don't want your information. You're not going to save it here. And then you say, okay, this is what we planned on. And then for next month, this is July. What does July look like? And then you go in, oh, well, we planned on this, but oops, we made some mistakes and we spent a little more, spent a little less. And then it does the math where it goes, okay, you did well in this column. You didn't do quite so well here. And it does all the math for you. So you go, here's what I made. And you can see where it is you spent it. So then you can figure out what your plan is moving forward.
Oh, that's awesome. I might
It's a
actually
fun
check
tool.
that out.
It's a fun tool.
I have an Excel spreadsheet that I keep track of all my bills and stuff, my income and my bills.
Mhm.
But I'm sure this is probably a much better form than what I have.
And you can customize it. So let's say you don't have certain things, you just put zeros in there. And I like it because it does the math for you. And it makes, again, you got to make it easy if you want people to do something.
All right, so we're going to run down this little rabbit hole real quick because I think it's an interesting story. Please tell me how you got hit by a truck.
Oh, so my mom was in Dallas, Texas, and the doctor said she's kind of in bad shape. You need to get here fast. So I flew in overnight. My older brother drove in from Florida, picks me up at the airport. He makes a left-hand turn, pickup truck. It wasn't a semi. It was just a little truck, slammed into the passenger side. It was his wife's 2-seater Porsche with the top down. Yeah. So a lot of people look at the pictures and go, oh no. And I know that they're going, oh, that poor Porsche, not the poor person, the poor Porsche. I get it. I do. I get it.
So you were in the Porsche?
I was in the passenger side. Yeah. When we got T-boned.
My gosh.
Yeah. I was on, that. And,
well, at least you were behind a car door. I was thinking you were like crossing the street or something.
No. There's, so the top was down and the windows were down. So it came about to my elbow. There was just nothing but air. And I got to tell you, airbags are amazing. Angels are better. And at that moment, I was like, and we're done. Like, I was like, and this is how I'm going out. And nobody should have survived this. Like, nobody should have survived this. That truck was going 45 miles an hour and it plowed into my body. There was a little bitty car door right there. And I mean, there was nothing between my elbow and my head when that truck hit. And so I didn't walk away because I had all these broken bones, but they patched me up really well. 2 days later, the doctor said, if you could walk, I'd let you out of here. And I was like, I can walk. He goes, wait a second, you shouldn't be able to move. I said, oh, I can walk. He's like, so I got to tell you, James, my computer, my little MacBook Pro, my little baby MacBook was at my feet and it got smushed like an accordion. My feet were fine. My pelvis was fine. My hips were fine. My shoulder, which was smushed. I mean, I was smushed. Nothing. 5 broken ribs on that side, punctured lung. I mean, all kinds of pointy things going to soft, squishy parts. God. Our body is just a bag of soft, squishy parts. Well, at least mine is. And some of those things don't like sharp objects. I said, I can walk. You want to see? He's like, I can't believe it. I'm like, yep, it's absolutely. And then you're like, okay, apparently we're not done yet. You got some things to do. Get up every day. Girls got to work.
God was not finished with you yet.
Not here now.
And I can tell that you are probably very resilient.
I'm very lucky that I've been widowed twice. And so people were like, how do you bounce from that? Like, well, you don't bounce, but you learn to deal. The first year, the first time was horrible. And they both died of cancer, different kinds of cancers. My first husband was a Vietnam vet. Thanks. And he died of multiple myeloma from Agent Orange. And that came on, when it finally hit him, it came on really suddenly. And then number 2, it was kidney cancer. And when it moved into his pancreas, that was rough. And he struggled with that for about 2.5 years. So the thing is, you learn a few things. First off, you recognize the pattern of how easy it is to get into a pattern that's not healthy. And you're like, okay, but when you're in it and you're a caregiver, the focus has to be on them. And then when they do pass, and all of a sudden you stand up and look around and go, oh, whoa, you're like, okay, I have a choice. I can wallow in self-pity and be horribly sad for the rest of my life, or I can figure out what my purpose is and move forward. And I didn't do it perfectly the first time. The first time somebody, I don't know, it was about 3 months after my first husband died, and I was not in a good mental state. And somebody's like, "You're doing so well." I was like, "I'm really not." And they're like, "Yeah, but you're 2 steps ahead of somebody else." And I have to tell you, that was a good moment for me. And I said, I don't feel that way, but you're right. Because right after that happened, I was not in a good place. I was in the pit of despair. And now it's like, you're right. I am 2 steps ahead of somebody else. And so our job, wherever we are in life, you're 2 steps ahead of somebody else. There's always somebody worse, somebody who's worse off than you. So our job is to get behind them and give them that NASCAR bump draft forward so that they can get that push forward that they need. Because we are 2 steps ahead of somebody else. So reach behind you, shove them in front of you, and give them that push forward, even when you don't feel like it. And I would say, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's what builds resilience, knowing that you can get through just about
Right.
anything, And for people who've lost a child, I think that's got to be worse. I don't know what that's like. I'm very grateful I don't know that, but I think that's got to be worse.
Well, we lost, I should say. We've been married 35 years, and we lost a 10-year-old daughter, Jessica Ann, to childhood cancer. And we moved to Charleston, South Carolina from Bluffton. I was an IT manager for a law firm there. Anyway, we moved here because the modality, or whatever they call it, they're apparently all the cancer centers use the same processes and procedures and medicine, and treatments. So we moved to Charleston, and they told us, she had emergency surgery. They said if she lives 12 months, she'll be very lucky. She lasted 14 months, and she was born on September the 11th, and she would have been 11 years old on September the 11th when the World Trade Centers went down. So
Wow.
that has a dual meaning. And then I had a 38-year-old son that passed away up in Michigan. So yeah, losing children's tough, and I
It's got to be
would not
the
wish
worst.
that on anybody.
Nope. And most couples, it destroys most couples.
Oh yeah,
because
pastor,
you've got your own stuff, and then you've got their stuff, and you're trying to be supportive, and always in your head. And we all have this. I don't care if we all have that idea of, what could I have done? Could I have done anything else? Could I have done anything more? And the answer is no, because frankly, it's not up to us. And we don't get to decide. And that's the one thing that I don't know about you, but I had to realize it wasn't ever up to me. It wasn't. I could do the very best I could. I got them the best care possible. I fought hard, but it's not up to us.
Right. Yeah. I remember she passed away. Jessica passed away like at 2 a.m. in the morning. I remember it just like it was yesterday. And of course, the morgue comes and picks up the body and takes it away. And then my pastor picked me up the following morning to go to the funeral home. And this funeral director sat there and told me that 98% of couples that lose a child wind up in divorce. And I was like, well, that may be true, but my wife and I are Christians and we have our faith, and that's not going to happen to us.
That's right.
Was it an easy thing to walk through? No. Did it change the fabric of our family forever? Yes. And it affected us. It affected our 2 remaining children, and it affected us. And in retrospect, looking back, I kind of wish we would have engaged in some sort of family therapy or individual therapy. We didn't know. We'd never been through that before, right? So anyway, yes, I'm sorry for your loss.
I'm sorry for yours. I think it's got to be worse. I'm sorry. But you speak about resiliency, and you go through something like that, and you look around and go, okay, and there's people who we don't know what they're struggling with. You look at somebody and they're like, oh, James, you're on this podcast. You're so successful. You're all this. And people have no idea. Nobody has any idea of what other people are going through.
Right. We all have a story.
Everybody does.
I joined the Podmatch Podcast Network back in December. And I've been doing this since May of 2023. Not a huge long time, but I've been at it for a couple of years now. And so I joined the Podmatch Podcast Network. And Alex kept sending me these emails, and he was like, "Hey, take my test, take this assessment. Let's find out what kind of podcast host you are." Blah blah blah. And I kept swatting him away like a fly. Right? I was like, "I don't have time for you." So he kept sending you like once a week. He'd send me the email, and I finally said, "Okay, I got to get this guy off my back." I took the assessment. Come to find out, my style of being a podcast host is storytelling. And Lord knows I have plenty of stories, right? And so I kind of try to incorporate the storytelling theme in all my episodes. And so anyway, joining that network has increased the quality and quantity of my podcasts 100-fold. So I'm very thankful for that.
It's a great network.
Yeah. So you're part of that too, right?
Yes.
That's how I found you.
Yes.
Or that's how you found me.
Yes.
Or that's how we found each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So now we're going to switch gears and get into a little bit more meat. And I've really enjoyed the conversation thus far, by the way. So this is going to go to leadership and service. How did your military experience shape your views on personal responsibility and constitutional rights?
So the thing about it, and all your military veterans know this, is we take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And it's not to a specific person. It's not like a monarchy of days of old. It's to the Constitution. And what was amazing to me was how many people had never bothered to read the Constitution. So you're swearing an oath to something that people had never read.
Right.
I was very fortunate. I had a really good high school education, and we had to do that. And, Schoolhouse Rock was a big part of my childhood. So, you know the preamble, if you know nothing else, thank goodness for the song. And I was also a history buff. So I had read the Constitution, but a lot of people hadn't. What was great about the military, and especially the Naval Academy, was we all got a copy of the Constitution, and you were supposed to read it, and then somebody asked you about it. And what I find so interesting is that when you look at it, it highlights the fact that every single citizen has a responsibility. You don't just get to enjoy the privileges. You also have a responsibility to do the right thing. And that's where things get tricky, because the right thing for one person seems like the wrong thing to somebody else. So how do you determine the right thing? And this, I think, is the big discussion in America today. Most of the people I know want to do the right thing, but they may have a very radically different idea of what that right thing is for them. And then they sometimes think that my right thing should be the same thing as their right thing, and that may not be the right thing. So the right thing, I think, is hard. And especially for people who have perhaps lost their moral compass, or they've had difficult events happen to them, and maybe it shakes their faith, and maybe it shakes their confidence, or maybe they watch way too much news, which you and I both know it's half of it's biased, half of it's wrong. Trying to find the truth is really, really hard today. So this is why I focus predominantly on numbers and statistics and the financial data, because that to me is less able to be skewed in a negative way. But we have to find the right thing. And then when you're leading people, one of the things they imbue in you at the Naval Academy and all service academies is making sure you are leading in the right way for your people. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from an Army general. I adore this man. And he said, Mary, you don't lead demographics. You don't lead genders. You don't lead groups. You lead individuals. And you've got to be touching those individuals in a way that matters to them. And again, what appeals to one person isn't going to appeal to somebody else. You're like, okay, we're going to do this because of whatever. That might not work for everybody. If you said, okay, we're going to go out and fight today because we're going to save all the puppies on the planet. See, that would totally work for me, but it wouldn't work for maybe a cat person. And I use that comically, but people are so different and so individualistic that it makes leadership now harder than ever.
I'll bet. So here's a good question. What parallels do you see between military leadership and the responsibilities of gun ownership in civilian life?
Great. So I love that question. First, you have to train so that you don't think. Gun ownership is the same way. If you have a gun and you learned how to use it and then you put it in a drawer and you haven't touched it in 5 years, that's irresponsible. Because if you need it, the time when you're sitting in the exit row, the time to look at the safety manual when you're in the exit row in a plane is not when they say, by the way, now is when we need you for now you're like, wait, now is when I should look at the pamphlet. You have to be ready. And when I say ready, it means if you're going to be a gun owner, you should be comfortable with the firearm. And that means training. And that's responsible gun ownership. The parallel in the military is the same. When we get young people, and I tell people all the time, we're good at training your young people. You don't want them in that moment of crises to be panicking. You want them to be able to react, not to think. And that's not being mean. What I mean is, if you're trying to think of steps A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you're having to think through each thing instead of just reacting, knowing what you should do, that's wasting valuable seconds, and you don't have that. So when you think about, responsible gun ownership, many people have it for home defense, for security, for all of those things. And we pray every single day that you'll never, ever, ever have to use that weapon. But if you do, the time to go, oh, I wonder if I remember the lock on my gun safe. I remember the code. I wonder if my gun is loaded. I wonder where the safety is. That's not the time to be thinking that.
Right.
So
exactly.
If you're gonna be a gun owner, you have to be responsible. You have to train well, and you have to be comfortable so that when the time comes in a crisis, you know the right thing to do in the moment.
Very good. Let's see. What's another question? Let's jump to economics and policy. Do you see economic trends influencing public sentiment around the Second Amendment?
That's a really good question, too. So the issue there is...
And you can always say, I don't know.
Yeah. And during times of scarcity or times of panic, whether it's economically based, people tend to align themselves more with home individualistic protection. So think about the government's sole job, in my opinion. The government's job is to keep its people and their stuff safe. That's their job. That's it. It is not education. It is not roads. Those are nice to have. But their sole job is to keep people and their stuff safe. And when people feel threatened, they feel their security is threatened, their financial security is threatened, their physical security is threatened, people become more myopic, more focused on me, my stuff. When you get more myopic, and we saw this during COVID, people got focused on me, my house, my job, my dog, my cat, my kids, my little league, my community, my little thing, things I could control. You get more myopic. You're less concerned with other people. When you feel threatened, you circle the wagons. So in those cases, if it's an economic threat, like let's say you watch the news and you're working for a company, and this is big in the IT world, as you know, some IT companies are very famous for going, we're going to lay off 5,000 people. Mm-hmm. And so you call your boss and go, is it us? And your boss is like, I don't know. And you're like, well, what do you mean you don't know? And they're like, they haven't told us. So now you don't even know if it's you. You think your boss is an idiot because they don't know. And if the boss doesn't know, they should know. And then you've lost faith in the entire organization. I mean, that's a feeling of being threatened. If your financial stability, your ability to provide for your family is being threatened, yeah, you become more myopic. And that means you retreat into yourself, and that can cause fear-based reactions. Now, we don't want fear-based reactions. But what we do want is to control the things that you can control. So you say, okay, can I control my economic income? Can I control my fiscal well-being? Can I control what's going on around me? And this is why I have those tools, because when people get worried, I'm like, okay, you're worried about your finances? Let's do a budget. And they're like, I don't like budgets. I don't like feeling like I'm concerned. That's not what it's about. It is about taking control of the things you can control. When you can take positive steps that reduces the fear and the uncertainty, now you're on track. And that's what I like.
Good. Very good. So what role should veterans play in the public discourse around gun rights and civic responsibility?
So I'm not sure veterans. So as a veteran, coming from a family of veterans, I'm not sure we have any more right than anybody else to influence public discourse. However, simply because maybe you were in the Army or the Air Force or the Marine Corps or the Navy or the Coast Guard, people might listen to you more, which means when you talk, you have to make sure that your information is more correct than other people. Because, like it or not, people are going to put a little bit more emphasis on the fact that maybe you know things, maybe you've seen things, and maybe you have, but also maybe you haven't. There's a lot of imposters out there who claim to be something that they were not. And so I just say you've got to be more cognizant that your words matter, and somebody might take your words more seriously than somebody else. So you've got to be very cautious. And that doesn't mean afraid of speaking out. That's not what I mean. You need to just be darn sure that when you say something, that it's correct, that you're not just making stuff up on the fly, because I think spreading wrong information is dangerous. And it can cause people to panic, and we need to be careful about the words we use to make sure that we're being accurate and we're telling the truth to the best of our ability.
Very good. Yeah, we should be, we talk a lot about Second Amendment, First Amendment, all the amendments, and Bill of Rights, Constitution. I need to reread the Constitution. I haven't read it in forever, but I have read it. So one of the things that I always say about the First Amendment is while we have protection under the First Amendment for free speech, that doesn't mean that you can stand in the town square and yell fire, right?
That's right.
You can't incite a riot. You can't you can't incite people or motivate people to do things that are going to harm other people, because then guess what? Yeah, you have the right to do stupid things and idiotic things, but guess what? You're going to be culpable and you're going to be held responsible for those things, right? So you have to be careful what you say.
And that's one of the problems, James, is there's a lot of people out there saying a lot of stupid stuff and they're not being held responsible. And that to me is a big problem, because people will get out there and they will either speculate or they will make a forecast that is 100% wrong, and they know it's wrong, but it's driving up readership or listenership or something because they're inflammatory. They're appealing to people's sense of fear. Somebody told me the other day, they said, in the media, fear sells. And so they incite fear. And good leaders know that what you need to do is to let people know what's going on, reassure them what the plan is to move forward, and take the right action. And that is exactly the opposite of what a lot of people are doing right now.
Right. Yeah, I like to watch News Nation,
Mm-hmm.
but I can only take it in small bits, small chunks. I'll watch it for 20 or 30 minutes and I'll just turn it off because I'm like, ugh. And I like NBC Nightly News. It used to be Lester Holt. Now they got this other guy named Yamas or whatever. He's pretty good, but it's like, it's a 30-minute show. Of course, it's only really a 15-minute show because the other 15 minutes is taken up by all these stupid commercials. And it's all negative stuff, except for at the very end, for the last 3 minutes, they have a positive story. You can only absorb so much of that negativity and agendas and clickbait.
It is true. And what scares me right now, James, is, during COVID, a lot of people went home and stayed home and they didn't come back out. And I'm still seeing that. There's a lot of people who left the workforce. They're out of their community activities. They're not involved in the softball game anymore, whatever. And they're spending a lot of time watching TV that is negative, and it gets in their head. And they think the world is bad. Okay, we've got some problems. They think all people are bad. That's not true. Most people are pretty decent, actually. And they think that they should be afraid. No, ours is not to be afraid. And I think that when people just get too much in their own head with just that as a source of information and feedback, I think it's kind of detrimental to their mental health.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and our country, I got to be careful how I say this. Our country, its leaders, specific groups, they like to pit each other. They want us to be pitted against each other. In other words, white people hate black people hate white people, Asians hate this, Vietnamese hate that. This culture group hates this culture group. Slap whatever label on it you want, but I go out into public, and I'm really more of an introvert than an extrovert. You probably find that hard to believe, but I don't like being around large groups of people. I'm not real comfortable in that. One-on-one stuff like this, I'm cool with. But there's times that, like, I'll be out in public and I'll say hello to people. I don't care what your skin color is. But we have to deal with bigotry and prejudice and all these ugly little things that are in our world, right? And I'll look at an older black gentleman and I'll be nice to him and I'll say, "Hey, how's your day going? Hello." And a lot of times I get this shocked look. Initially, I'll get this look of, "Did he just say that to me?" Right? Because a lot of the mantra or the things that we're being told, by culture is that you're not supposed to like each other. And then if they'll let me, I'll get into a conversation with them. He doesn't hate me. I don't hate him because of his skin color, right? And I find that's reassuring to me to know that I don't have to dislike somebody because of his skin color, right? It's like,
I'm very much looking forward to the day that we don't even consider it,
right,
that it's not even an issue. I always remember when I was in the Navy and somebody would go, "Oh, you're a girl sailor," and I'm like, "Well, I'm a girl and a sailor." I mean, I never thought gender was an issue. I never thought race was an issue because the military is so. We don't care. Like, you don't care. And when I tell people you just don't care in the military, they're like, "Well, I heard." I'm like, I never saw it. I never saw it. And I would think that I would be a little bit aware of it. My first two men were brown, so you'd think I'd maybe pick up on it. And I was in Asia where, I was the tallest, whitest thing they'd ever seen in some parts where I went. I was in Korea one time, and somebody comes up and says, "Are you Julia Roberts?" And I said, "Yes, I am." Because they just not. I mean, this was way back in the 80s,
right,
and
right.
and all that. And I love everybody. And so I'm just surprised when people are stupid about these things. It just floors me when people are surprised. So that people are stupid, and I'm just surprised when people are dumb. Because again, the military that I was in, you embrace everybody because frankly, you need everybody's talent, skills, and abilities.
Yeah.
And you don't have all the talent, skills, and abilities you need to stay alive. So you got to embrace every single person around you, and you got to find out what their strengths are, what they're good at, and you find a way to make it work together. And I think that when people haven't been put in a situation where you have to rely on other people, if you're in your own little bubble, that maybe you think weird things.
Why can't we just all get along, right?
We all need to get along.
That's
We
what
need to
I
be
kind of
kind.
think. I'm like, why can't we just all get along? You do you, I'll do me, and we'll just be happy, right? You don't have
Yep.
to agree with what I do. You don't have to like me. Same thing. I don't have to like your opinions. I don't have to like your philosophy. I don't have to like your religion. But you're still a human being that has, you are deserving of respect and compassion and kindness, right? And I think we all, as human beings and as citizens of whatever country you're in, I think we owe each other to pass that forward and to be. It's like what did our parents teach us way back in the day? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right?
There you go. And I'm going to also say, if you were lucky enough to be born in this country, you have a greater responsibility. Because by the happy accident of birth, we are privileged. We are
Yes.
lucky. And we could have just as easily been born someplace else where we don't have the rights, we don't have the freedom, we don't have the opportunities. And there's people every single day trying to get into this country because they know it provides opportunities. And we have a responsibility that is greater because we've been given more. There's a great phrase I used to like, there's a scholarship that is called "To whom much is given, much is expected." And I love that as a name for a scholarship because you know what? If you've been given more, much is expected of you.
That's right.
And I think we are all wildly lucky, wildly blessed, and that gives us a better and a bigger responsibility to be kind, to do more, to help other people out more.
I'm a naturalized citizen. My sister and I were adopted by a military family in Aschaffenburg, Germany. And I had to be in the country for 7 or 8 years before I could go to a federal courthouse, say the Pledge of Allegiance, and become a naturalized citizen. And I'll never forget that day. There was like 30 or 40 of us. Most of the people that were there being naturalized were adults, just me and my sister. I think my sister and I had separate dates that we had to go because of whatever, birthdays, whatever, I don't know. But I believe that I'm fiercely patriotic. And I believe that a lot of men and women through the centuries have died to protect our way of life here in America, right? Uh, I think a lot of Americans are just lackadaisical, lazy, and they just take it for granted. They take liberty for granted, And I'm like, I had a military fella on the other day, and he's like, he said, freedom and liberty is not like a mayonnaise jar that you can just sit in a refrigerator and forget about. It's something that you have to pursue, and you have to manipulate it, you have to protect it. And I liked what he had to say about that. He spent time over in Iraq, and he wrote a book, and he sent me a copy of it. It's a very interesting book. His name's Kenny Dupar, and it's, I think, episode 51. If you ever get a chance to listen to it, we talked for like an hour and 4 minutes, and it was just a beautiful back and forth about liberty and gun rights and his experience in the military and all of that. So anyhow, I'm digressing there. But yeah, you can see my background, right?
I love it.
Yeah. USA, USA. I have a hat that says USA, USA, USA. All right. Dr. Commander Mary Kelly, I appreciate you being on the podcast episode. And to my listening audience, I want to say thank you for the privilege of your time. Our podcast is hosted on Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Public Radio. Wherever you get your podcast episodes, you'll find me there. Liberty and Gun Rights Podcast. I upload the video episode to rumble.com and to my YouTube channel, James Moffitt. And the audio versions are on the other list that I just gave you. But I do have the video version that gets uploaded. Be sure to share our podcast with your Second Amendment friends, family, and coworkers. You can contact me at Liberty Gun Rights Podcast at proton.me. That's Liberty Gun Rights Podcast at proton.me. Make sure you go to Mary Kelly's website, which again is productiveleaders.com/free-resources. And there's gobs and gobs of lists and spreadsheets and PDFs that every one of us can use. So take advantage of that. And Mary, thank you for putting all that together. And I had a wonderful time talking to you.
James, it was such an honor and such a pleasure chatting with you today. I love that we just had a normal, natural, deep conversation about important things. I think you've got a great
Amen.
gift for this, and I thank you for having me.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so I'm just going to say bye-bye, everybody. Listen to the episode and leave a review, please.